Okay, so Epic's multiplayer online tower defense title Fortnite has finally got an Xbox One X upgrade. The patch recently dropped and we've finally been able to check it out, and the results are pretty interesting. For a start, it's clear that there have been different priorities when taking Fortnite and delivering a patch to the PS4 Pro and then to Xbox One X. On the Pro, the developers favoured targeting 1080p resolution, bumping up various visual effects closer to PC's epic settings, whereas on Xbox One X, we get a doubled barrel boost, an upgrade in resolution well beyond 1080p, along with an equally large upgrade in visual feature set, fully matching PC's epic settings. It's certainly an interesting upgrade, though it's not one without some repercussions. Certainly in terms of performance, things could be smoother, but more on that in a bit. Let's get started with image quality. This is by far the biggest upgrade you're going to notice on Xbox One X, and it's huge. PlayStation 4 Pro operates at native 1080p using an advanced temporal anti-aliasing component, and image quality looks very smooth and really refined here, with little in the way of aliasing and other artifacts. But on a 4K TV it does look very soft, and the amount of upscaling means that fine details do tend to blur over more than we'd like. It's a presentation best suited to a Full HD screen, but Xbox One X on the other hand looks superb. The game renders out at 1720p, and while it's not native 4K, when viewed on a 4K screen the image appears crisp, clear and highly detailed. It's a massive step up over PS4 Pro in this regard. And yeah, the use of temporal anti-aliasing, a more refined implementation than what we saw on Pro, also ensures that upscaling artifacts aren't really prominent. The game features a very smooth, clean image and it looks great. The increase in pixel count also has a knock-on effect for other elements. Things such as texture filtering is automatically given a boost from the increase in samples on offer, although it appears that the level of filtering is also upgraded over Pro, so we get clearer looking textures from a variety of angles. Of course, the Xbox One X does go much further, and a variety of elements from post-processing, shadows and lighting effects are also given a boost here. The most notable improvements come in the form of higher quality shadows. Rendered at a higher resolution, these appear much smoother than on PlayStation 4 Pro and very refined. It's basically on par with PC's epic settings here, adding a nice level of clarity and smoothness to these elements. Likewise, ambient occlusion is also given a boost, with more depth added to the scene with an implementation that simply looks a bit more natural and better defined. It's also worth pointing out that the amount of shadow casting lights has also increased, so if we look at this particular scene here, take a look to the left and notice the extra shadows cast across the wall there. Essentially this kind of fleshes out the world with a bit more depth across the entire scene. High quality depth of field is also another big improvement. The effect on PlayStation 4 Pro tends to create quite blurry looking scenery at a distance, whereas on Xbox One, these out of focus areas are handled with greater subtlety. Slightly softer, but not completely blurred out. Combined with a higher resolution, it simply means that you get a more detailed, better presentation across the entire scene, on both near field and distant objects. There are also a few other improvements such as high quality textures, mainly noticeable on things like tattoos and decals on the characters. According to Epic, the game also includes other refinements that are more difficult to pick up. For example, screen space reflections are included on Xbox One X but not Pro, and reflection quality is also increased as well. Likewise, things like motion blur is also given a high quality implementation. However, it's fair to say that most of the time it's not really obvious. The amount of reflective surfaces is quite minimal, and the difference in motion blur, even when the effect is heavily deployed, is quite subtle. That said, it's fair to say that there is a nice refinement across the board, and in terms of graphical quality and resolution, Xbox One X clearly delivers a big leap over PS4 Pro. It's essentially the full-fat PC experience, just not quite at native 4K. Now in terms of performance, this is somewhat of an interesting one. The last time we sampled PlayStation 4 Pro, there was an issue with regards to improper frame pacing, creating unwanted judder in areas where the game was maintaining a steady frame rate. The good news, in the latest build this has been completely ironed out on the Sony platform. So these scenes should be cleared up nicely, with us getting a mostly locked 30 frames per second in this mode. Unfortunately, in the current build we have, we weren't able to access this particular segment. But if we move on to the Battle Royale 100 player PvP mode, then performance here stacks up rather well. It's not really the most demanding of scenarios, but we often noticed a smooth 30 frames per second with only the occasional dip from time to time. But aside from that, performance was generally very smooth and consistent on PS4 Pro. And that's also true of the Xbox One X version as well in this particular mode. But in areas where the engine is pushed to the limit, such as the player versus enemy tower defense style mode, then performance often takes a massive hit due to the much larger scale of the gameplay on offer. Performance plays out at a solid 30 frames per second with smaller encounters, but as soon as we get right into the thick of it, with new enemies appearing on screen in flashes of alpha effects and lighting, then performance really starts to buckle, with frame rates dropping as low as 20 FPS at times. It seems that the boost in resolution up to 1728p, along with running at PC's epic settings, may have been a step too far in this particular mode. The result is that in these more stressful scenes the game really isn't as fun to play as on PS4 Pro. The experience feels more uneven, and there's a sense that the stutter and fluctuations in controller response certainly impact upon the gameplay to a significant degree here. It's a bit of a shame as the tower defense gameplay is by far the high point of Fortnite. Building elaborate defenses while trying to fend off waves of enemies is great fun, and it's a shame that when things really start heating up, performance tends to take a nosedive. It's one aspect where PS4 Pro and base hardware have an advantage. Hopefully this is something that Epic Games can fix closer to release. After all, this game isn't final yet. It's still ongoing, a kind of open beta or early access if you will, so we can probably expect to see further refinements with regards to performance, more optimization. After all, the frame pacing issues were eliminated from PS4 Pro, and it's likely we'll see better performance from Xbox One X as well. Anyway, from what I've seen so far, I think that the Xbox One X version in terms of graphical quality wins out over Pro. It really comes close to delivering that PC ultra high-end experience on console. The downside is that performance does take a hit, and it means that maybe the amount of upgrades were a step too far while trying to get resolution up to 4K. That means, in gameplay terms, PS4 Pro delivers the better experience in terms of these mid-gen refresh machines. However, in terms of the Battle Royale 100 player PvP mode, then both versions are actually pretty solid and deliver a nice experience. Anyway, with that said, I think I'll leave it there for now. If you enjoyed this analysis, then don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.